Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Giriva. Get some chair. Get a chair for her. No, you're not. No, you're not. Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Prajajana Randhana. Yashodanandana Prajajana Randhana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Go on, get the gates. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Hare Rama, Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa, Parudikacharya, Ashtotar the Srimad Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa, Parudikacharya, Ashtotar the Srimad. His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya, Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Narayanam namaskritya narang chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudiriyet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashtapayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam, but by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this first day of November 2019 in SanDiego, a reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. A reading from the fourth canto entitled Creation of the Fourth Order. Chapter 20, Lord Vishnu's appearance in the sacrificial arena of Maharaj Pitu. Text number 14. Shreyak Prajapalanameva Ragyo Yat Samparaye Sukratat Sashtam Angsham Hartanyata Vitapunya Prajanam Arakshita Kadaharo Gamati Shreyak Prajapalanameva Ragyo Yat Samparaye Sukatat Shastam Angsham Hartanyata Vitapunya Prajanam Arakshita Kadaharo Ghamati Shreyak Prajapalanameva Ragyo Yat Samparaye Sukatat Shastam Angsham Hartanyata Vitapunya Prajanam Arakshita Kadaharo Gamati. Shreyak Prajapalanameva Ragyo Yak Samparaye Sukatat Sashtamangsham Hartanyata Vritapunya Prajanam Arakshita Kadaharo Gamati. Shreyak Prajapalanameva Ragyo Yat Samparaye Sukatat Shashtam Angsham Hartanyata Vitapunya Prajanam Arakshita Kadaharo Gamati. Shreyak Prajapalanameva Ragyo Yat Samparaye Sukatat Shashtam Angsham Hartanyata Vitapunya Prajanam Arakshita Kadaharo Gamati. Shreya, auspicious. Prajapalanam, ruling over the general mass of people. eva, certainly, ragyaha, for the king, yat, because, samparaye, in the next birth, sukratat, from the pious activities, shashtamangsham, 1/6 part, harta, collector, anyata, otherwise, ritapunyaha, being bereft of the results of pious activities, prajanam, of the citizens, arakshita, one who does not protect, kadaharaha, tax collector, agham, sin, atti, receives or suffers. Translation: Maharaj Vishnu speaking, Lord Vishnu speaking to Maharaj Prithu. To give protection to the general mass of people who are citizens of the state is the prescribed occupational duty for a king. By acting in that way, the king in his next life shares 1/6 of the result of the pious activities of the citizens. But a king or executive head of state who simply collects taxes from the citizens but does not give them proper protection as human beings has the results of his own pious activities taken away by the citizens, and in exchange for his not giving protection, he becomes liable to punishment for the impious activities of his subjects. Purport. The question may be raised here that if everyone engaged in spiritual activities to attain salvation and became indifferent to the activities of the material world, then how could things as they are go on? And if things are to go on as they ought to, how can a head of state be indifferent to such activities? In answer to this question, the word shreya, auspicious, is used here. The division of activities in society as arranged by the Supreme Personality of Godhead was not blindly or accidentally created, as foolish people say. The Brahman must do his duty properly, and the Kshatriya, the Vaishya, and even the Shudra must do the same. And every one of them can achieve the highest perfection of life, liberation from this material bondage. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, 1845. Sve sve karman habitatak sangsiddhim labate naraha. By executing one's prescribed duties, one can attain the highest perfection. Lord Vishnu advised Maharaj Prithu that a king is not enjoined to give up his kingdom and the responsibility of protecting the prajas or citizens, to instead go away to the Himalayas for liberation. He can attain liberation while executing his royal duties. The royal duty, or duty of the head of state, is to see that the prajas, or the general mass of people, are doing their respective duties for spiritual salvation. A secular state does not necessitate a king or a head of state who is indifferent to the activities of the prajas. In the modern state, the government has many rules and regulations for conducting the duties of the prajas, but the government neglects to see that the citizens advance in spiritual knowledge. If the government is careless in this matter, the citizens will act whimsically, without any sense of God realization or spiritual life, and thus become entangled in sinful activities. An executive head should not be callous to the welfare of the general mass of people while he simply goes on collecting taxes. The king's real duty is to see that the citizens gradually become fully Krishna conscious. Krishna conscious means completely free from all sinful activities. As soon as there is complete eradication of sinful activities in the state, then there will be no more war, pestilence, famine, or natural disturbances. This was actually prevailing during the reign of Maharaj Yudhishthira. If a king or head of the government is able to induce the citizens to become Krishna conscious, then he is worthy to rule over the mass of people. Otherwise, he has no right to levy taxes. If the king looks after the spiritual interests of the citizens, he can levy taxes without difficulties. In this way, both the subjects and the king will be happy during this life, and in the next life the king will be able to share 1/6 of the pious activities of the citizens. Otherwise, by levying taxes on the sinful citizens, he will have to share the reactions of their sinful activities. The same principle can be applied to parents and spiritual masters as well. If parents simply give birth to children like cats and dogs, but cannot save their children from imminent death, they become responsible for the activities of their animalistic children. Lately, such children are turning into hippies. Similarly, if a spiritual master cannot direct his disciples to become free of sinful activities, he becomes responsible for their sinful acts. These subtle laws of nature are unknown to the present leaders of society. Since the leaders of society have a poor fund of knowledge, and the citizens in general are rogues and thieves, there cannot be any auspicious situation for human society. At the present moment, the whole world is full of such incompatible combination. At the present moment, the whole world is full of such an incompatible combination of state and citizens, and therefore there is constant tension, war, and anxiety as an inevitable result of such social conditions. Om Jnana Timarandasya Gyan Anjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So this purport seems to have been drawn directly from the headlines of today's news. You can see how pertinent the instructions of the Bhagavatam are to today's world. So here Maharaj Vishnu, or again I said the same thing, Lord Vishnu is again telling Maharaj Prithu what his duty is as the head of state. Now, Prabhupada is drawing in his purport from this verse by Lord Rishabdev, Guru Nasatsat Swajano Nasatta Pida Nasatsat Swajani Nasatsat. One should not become a spiritual master, one should not become a relative, one should not become a father or mother or husband or demigod, unless one can liberate one's ward. A ward is someone who you're responsible for under your protection. Very important verse, and this is basically extending it to a king. A king also has wards. The citizens are really under the protection of the leadership of the country. King, president, whoever it may be, and those who he has around them who are part of the executive function. So, this is a very sobering truth that we just learned in this verse and purport, and that is that if the king is not seeing that the people are performing their duties and progressing in Krishna consciousness, not just that they're employed, but they're employed as well progressing in their spiritual life, then he will share 1/6 of the result of the sinful activities. Actually, it doesn't say that. He says he'll be punishment for the impious activities of his subjects. It doesn't say 1/6 of the impious. It says he shares 1/6 of the pious activities if they're doing the right thing. But there's no percentage given, at least in this verse. But the point is that as soon as we have someone under our care or we're responsible for, then our lives are hooked up and our karmic fate is also hooked up. It's, just doing nothing, just being situated in winning an election or being appointed, and then being completely irresponsible, that's a very, very dangerous situation. You're already responsible for the sinful activities you perform, but when you have a connection to others by means of, because they're looking to you for guidance, you're giving them example, you're responsible, then you're sharing in their karmic fate also, good or bad. That's the situation. People have no idea. So, what is this protection? There's two things. One is that the king has to see that the different divisions of society, the Brahmins, the other Kshatriyas, who may be responsible for it, which is one head of state, and of course the Vaishyas and the Shudras, and the children, and everyone is properly situated and is working properly according to their proper role in society. And the result of that is, when it's Daiva Varnashram, it's not Daivi Varnashram, we had mispronounced that for many, many years. Daiva Varnashram means Varnashram focused on the spiritual advancement of the people who are in Varnashram. In other words, Atak Pumbid Vijashreshta Varnashram Vibhagasha, Svanusthitasya dharmasya sanksiddhi haritoshanam. Suvanusthitasya means performing your duties very nicely. Pumbir dvida shrestha. This is a statement by Sutta Goswami right at the beginning of Bhagavatam, second chapter. It's one of those series of verses that are so important and Prabhupada spoke on so often. Varna ashrama vibhagasha means according to the division of Varna and Ashram. We know that division. Kshatriya, Brahman, Vaishya, Shudra, Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanapasta, and Sannyasi. That they all have their proper functions and their proper duties in each of those Varna and Ashrams. But the success will be measured by how much it's pleasing to Hari. Sangsid here, the perfection is Haritoshanam. This is revolutionary. In India today, you have this corrupted caste system where people happen to be born into a family of Brahmins, and whether they have the qualities or activities of a Brahmin or not, they claim the privileges of Brahminical status, and it creates havoc throughout society. So the king is the king or executive head has to make an arrangement. Now, can't do it all on himself. He has to have a cabinet, or he has to have a government that is focused on that purpose. One is to see that people are acting and employed in their proper varna according to their psychophysical nature. And that along with actually working and earning their livelihood, they need to be progressing in spiritual life. And in this, the seventh canto, there's a more detailed description, I think, in I forget what chapter, of the duties of each of these varnas. And as explained right at the beginning of Bhagavatam, the whole point is to advance toward spiritual realization, liberation. That's the preliminary necessity of human society, of every living entity. To progress toward getting free from the bondage of birth, death, old age, and disease. Now, let's see this purport. If things are, how are things to go on? If everyone is joining the Hare Krishnas and giving up their material duties, so-called. Well, the point is things will go on when people within their activities are worshipping the Lord. Prabhupada cites this verse from the Bhagavad Gita 18:45. And along with this verse is the next verse. So I'm going to go back, I reference this. Sve sve karman yabaditak samsiddhim labate nadak sakarman nadadak siddhim yata vindati tachanu. By following, this is 1845, 18th chapter, 45th verse. By following one's qualities of work, everyone can become perfect. Now please hear from me how this is done. In other words, within the varnashram, if you're nicely situated, that includes women, their role is there, one can achieve siddhi. Now listen to how it can be done. Next verse. Yatak paviti bhutanam hina sarv midam tatam sakarmanatam abhyarcha siddhim vindati manava. Which means a person will attain perfection through performing his own work when, through that work, he worships the Lord, who is the source of all beings and who is all-pervading. So the idea is that somehow or other, through our work, now in an ashram situation, like we are, the rarity, to live in a temple and have, it's a very fortunate position, because your work, whatever it may be, is all geared towards service to the Lord, automatically. Now, having the consciousness of, while doing that, of Krishna, that I'm sweeping this, I'm cooking this for Krishna, that's the whole point. I mean, Krishna's on the altar and you're cooking in the kitchen and it's going to be offered to Krishna. So somewhere along the way there, instead of just thinking of what spice I should use, you're also thinking, well, this is going to be offered to Krishna, let me do it nicely. That's the whole idea. You're chanting in front of the deity. Okay, well then you think, I'm chanting for the deity. That's the next step. But it's a lot easier to take that next step than if you're out there working in some office. You know what I'm saying? That's the advantage of being in a devotional environment like this. It's all geared toward bringing yourself to this point. So that at a certain point, everything you do, every breath you take, every step you take, you're thinking, oh, I'm walking for Krishna, I'm breathing for Krishna, 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 Krishna. That's the whole idea, is that we can more easily become Krishna conscious in this environment. And of course, we have that part of our day which is not at all involved in anything having to do with our psychophysical nature or our varna, but it's simply bhajan. Whether you're a Kshatriya, Brahmin, Vaishya, Shudra, and chant Hare Krishna, it's all equal. There's no restriction. There's no preference. And Lord Chaitanya, that was his revolution. He exalted the lowest to the highest. Haridas Thakur, even Rupa and Sanatan were considered fallen in society. They were employing their skills in the service of the Madhya king, basically. But they were liberated from that, and they showed their real nature. But this idea, which is applicable throughout society, the whole idea is a Bhagavatam, as we see in this wonderful verse in purport, and the Bhagavad Gita as well, is meant for everybody. Not just for those who can lead, fully renounced spiritual lives, which is ideal, which is great. But society is made up, vast majority of people are married, they get children, they need work, and so forth. Now, this society that we have today is through and through, the demoniac leaders and the educational system, it's very corrupt. And I read something this morning, these are backed by scientific rules. It's not just somebody off the top of their head. That in 6 years, there'll be a complete extinction of human beings. Didn't hear that one before, did you? By 2026. Maybe it will be. They're killing all the insects. They have various apocalypses going on. There's the climate catastrophe. Forget about climate change. Climate catastrophe. We're experiencing it now. It hasn't been this cold at this time of year. There's all kinds of irregularities. Even in India. Simple farming and agriculture, but because of the irregularities of the rain, they have the rainy season, but it's supposed to rain at a certain amount of time and a certain amount. But no. The monsoon is irregular. It's hardly raining, then it rains too much, and it stops raining. You can't have agriculture that way. Without the agriculture, we all starve. Too hot, no rain, too cold. This is what the climate catastrophe means. Irregular. That's the first thing. Not just that it gets warmer and warmer. That's also happening. So anyway, I don't get off into that, but it's a direct result of the sinful activities of the leadership, which is now all pervading in society. Whatever the great people do, and common men follow. Not great, but whoever has the most prominence in a leadership position, people follow that. So this is the situation we're in, and the only hope really is Krishna consciousness. But that's not on the ballot next year. Tulsi Gabbard's not going to get elected. And even she's like, it's not really there. So all we can do is continue, really get serious about our own sadhana, because that's always the answer personally. The answer for our own life is to become as Krishna conscious as quickly as possible, fully Krishna conscious. That's our answer to the climate change in terms of our personal life. In terms of preaching, there has to be a thorough, absolute revolution in society, as explained at the beginning of Bhagavatam. Tad Bhagava Sargo Janataga Viplavo. Viplavo means, Viplavo literally means capsizing the boat. That's a revolution from the bottom up. The undermining, the very basis of our society, they call this a consumer society. You know what that means? It's all based on more and more unnecessary consumption and sense gratification. That's what holds the economy together. If people stop buying unnecessary things and throwing them out and all of this waste, then the whole present society will collapse. Well, that's what we're trying to do. How much are we consuming here? As little as possible. Right? Does everyone have their car? And you have a car, I have a car. I drive about 10 miles a month, from Traders to Sprouts and over to Ralph's. That's basically it, unless I have to go to LA or something. But the idea is that whatever you need to consume, the whole body and mind together, you know. I mean, we have to have some things, but not this extravagance. You know, buying $100 million homes, not enough, you know, $100 million yachts, you know. Of course, only a few people can do that, but what about all the rest of the people who aspire for that or feel, you know, that their material life is, and it is being squeezed. Just to live in a home, the rents in LA are like twice or three times as much as they are here. It's ridiculous to pay $3,000 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment or something. It's insane. In other words, they squeeze you as much as possible. You have to go to the hospital, you know, suddenly $20,000 a day for some ICU or something. It's absolutely demonic. And people, what happens is people are always in anxiety, you know. If they lose one day of work or you know, they get sick, oh my God, they're only living paycheck to paycheck. This is the world we're living in here. So here is given, as always, the Bhagavatam gives the ideal. And it gets right to the essence of the thing. Who is leading? You know? Who is the ultimate leader? It's Krishna. It's God. If you don't recognize that, you're condemned. Ishavashamidam sarvam. Read the first purport, you know, of the Ishopanishad, the beginning with the mantra one. The false claim of God's property as our own, you know, billions and trillions of, you know, of land and property. This is the source of all the problems. And so the solution is right here, recognizing God as the proprietor of everything, you know, declaring our dependence on God. So that we may not realize it, but we're part of a revolutionary movement, and it's starting from our own heart. How much we can be purified and experience the blessings of Krishna consciousness, which negate all of the material temptations. You know, everything just pales into insignificance when you see that. Tucham. What is that verse? Chakva turna mashesh mandadabatish. Mandadabatish. Tuchava. That the Goswamis, yeah. That when they met Lord Chaitanya, they gave up all of their you know, power and influence that they had in part of the government. This is Rupa Sanatan, and Raghunath Das gave, you know, the sole heir to a huge fortune. He had a wife who was from the heavenly planets. Everything was there. Didn't care. All he wanted to do was get out and go to Lord Chaitanya and become the most renounced sannyasi there ever was. So why? Because he's experiencing the nectar of Krishna consciousness. So experiencing it ourselves and giving it out, that is the only antidote to this madness of consumption and despair, really, all throughout this country, and it's spreading throughout the world. So it's an emergency situation, and the solution is given here. You can have a job, you have to have a job, but the job has to be without sinful activities, and through that work you need to be worshipping the Lord, as explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Then you can achieve perfection. That means the principles of jnana, tapa, and yajna. Yajna, dana, and tapa. Explained in the 18th chapter. The sacrifice, charity, and austerity. They can never be given up, even in any varna or ashram. How to perform sacrifice? We have the sacrifice. Meet with your family at home. You know, you don't even need kartals or anything. You can just clap and chant Hare Krishna. That's the yajna of the age. Sankirtan, yajna. It's completely inexpensive. Nobody is barred. There's no time restriction, as Lord Chaitanya says in his Shikshastika. Anyone, anytime, any place can chant Hare Krishna and perform yajna, the most powerful yajna for the age. And then as far as dana goes, whatever you can of your precious salary or whatever you're earning, give it for the propagation of Krishna consciousness. That's his proper dana. There's charity in the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. You know, if you just give to anyone on the street, you give a donation. That's mode of ignorance. You know what they're going to do? They'll probably drink it. You know, get a drink or something. And as far as tapas goes, that's the meaning of human life. Nayam deho deha bhajang nalokte krishnan kamanarate. Don't waste this precious human life, dear friend, by working hard for hoggish happiness. Through abnegation, worldly life transcend and learn to taste divine love's endless bliss. This is Rishabhdeva's famous verse. We have a choice in the human life. People don't know they have a choice. They're kept in ignorance intentionally, so that they'll keep feeling they need so many things. And then once they get you into debt, paying off your debt, you become a slave to the banks. You're buying things you don't need, or you can't make enough money. They've arranged things, and they get you, And then if you miss a payment on the credit card, it becomes 25% interest. You put your money in the bank and you get 0.001% interest. As you know that? It used to be you go put your money in the bank, get 5-6% interest a year. Now they've reduced the interest rates, and so you get 0.001%. In other words, nothing. So people who are on fixed incomes, older people who have saved some money, they lose thousands and thousands of dollars a year over what they used to be able to get. It's all very demonic. And it's based on this artificial needs and artificial society, and everything's being run by the demons. So this is, we see what happens. I mean, there's so many lessons here. We have Kamsa, we have Hiranyakashipu, and Ravana's in Bhagavatam, even more in the Ramayana. There's no end to the desire, right in the 16th chapter, right? There's no end to the lust, and the greed expands, and you have now 5 people in the United States have as much wealth as the bottom half of the people. Of 150 million people, their wealth is, these people have $100 billion and more. It's obscene. We're living it. It's all around us. And the result is climate change, climate catastrophe, insect apocalypse. We can't live without the insects. We may not believe that when we walk in the kitchen we see all those cucarachas. But there's so many thousands of different things that the insect, pollination of the bees, they get into the earth and they aerate the earth. It's hundreds of things. The whole thing is very delicately balanced by Krishna, the natural world. And when they use these horrible chemicals to wipe out, this agriculture, the mass agriculture, they might wipe out the insects. So the immediate thing is, we can sell produce, and make money. But the long-range thing is that all the insects die, and we become extinct. Suddenly you'll see what will happen. Just like I have difficulty buying my organic broccoli that I have every day. The traders, suddenly they don't have it. Now they're starting to have a little bit, The produce will become more and more expensive, and at a certain point it will become unavailable. Prabhupada said, just listen, it's in the 12th canto. Food will become more and more expensive, And then what? Then we have to migrate, right? That's what all these migrations are about. So it's not like 100 years from now. It's closer and closer. I may not see it, but you will. So our movement that Srila Prabhupada gave us, and so that great effort founded and gave us the Shastra, and gave us the structure, and gave us the buildings and the mantra and everything else, and the knowledge. These are emergencies on all levels. Personally, we have to be very serious to get out of this. Do we really want to come back as babies into this world? Think about it. We want to go back to God at this lifetime. So we should kick out all the latent and the vestigial, hesitancy and sense gratifications. Get really serious about chanting purely and giving Krishna consciousness to as many people as we can. Okay, I'll stop there. Is there any discussion? Damodar Kumar Das. Oh, we have the mic. Yes, Prabhu. Is it?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol.
You're very savvy when it comes to these worldly situations and things that we should know about, just to like heighten our awareness of the reality of the world that we live in. It's enough to overwhelm one. It's enough to drive anyone insane if you actually think about it. It reminds me of what you're bringing to us, awareness of these things, about like insect apocalypse, the political climate change, like all these different things. And it reminds me, flashback 5 years back, when I was 19, some of my association, they were like, activists, political activists. I had friends who were basically rebels who did anything and everything. I remember going to a meeting, and there was like dozens and dozens of organizations of people who are just so hyperactive and of all these different social, political, environmental, criminal things, and we're just so passionate about bringing awareness of these things to the world.
Yeah.
And but the thing is, what they had, what we can use, is like absolute conviction of the world as we know it, and they're also very passionate. Like they lived and were willing to die to push on those causes to make people aware of it. And then I was thinking, like for us, likewise, like seeing the world situation, we know we have the solution to become Krishna conscious and to try to share Krishna consciousness with others. But if we don't have that conviction within ourselves, we will never be inspired.
Yeah.
So,
actually, remember if you study the Bhagavatam, it starts exactly with this sense of emergency. The sages in Naimisharanya, saw the Kali Yuga coming. They're performing this long sacrifice. What to do, and the solution really is the manifestation of the Bhagavatam. Is that Parikshit, he could have counteracted the curse, but he saw that his role had changed, and that his real role was to bring forth the Bhagavatam by giving up his kingdom and just sitting and waiting for Shukadev to come. And the Bhagavatam really is meant to bring about a revolution in society, but the revolution always starts in the heart. You may know so many things and you can see it, but you have no idea of what the solution is unless you yourself have undergone a revolution in consciousness. You see what I'm saying? In other words, where you're off the bodily platform and seeing the real root of the problem. This goes back to when I was a kid, and I fancied myself a radical. We had this term radical. I think I mentioned that, which means getting to the root and really dealing with the problem. But we were Marxists. The root is get the means of production and all of this stuff, but that's external. That's the root is always the material mistake, that I'm the body, and then identifying with that and everything that starts with it, and the concomitant material desires that are never satisfied. There has to be that philosophy. But as you say, the sense of urgency. Just last night we had this wonderful ceremony for Prabhupada, and he saw the urgency. I mean, he saw, he had tried very hard to do it in India, but he saw that it was like do or die. I got to take it to the West. This is what the original instruction was. I looked it up, in the Western world. And so he came to New York, and it was like completely, from the outside, it looked like it was a hopeless endeavor. How could it succeed? But he was bringing the truth and the actual means of awakening this revolutionary consciousness in whoever would take it seriously, had some faith, and would chant. And so he succeeded, and the movement is still able to succeed on that basis. But it's nourished by this faithful following, personally, each of us, and becoming spiritually empowered to affect others and give others Krishna consciousness. It's a dual thing. I always bring this up. Lord Chaitanya's twofold motive, Krishna's twofold motive for coming as Lord Chaitanya, is he wanted to experience the highest pleasure. Even as Krishna, he couldn't experience it, because that's in Radharani, that's that whole thing. So it's a completely internal, esoteric thing. But at the same time, he felt the urgency of giving it to others. So he went on this 2-year preaching tour of South India, just spreading Krishna consciousness everywhere. And then he took all the trouble to instruct Rupa and Sanatan to write the books, which are, that's the social responsibility. At the same time, he's in, Jagannath Puri, experiencing these highest levels of love and separation in the mood of Radharani, but also preaching, because that's also being recorded and coming out. So that dual track has to be for all of us. If we don't have strong sadhana, then we won't be experiencing the real value of Krishna consciousness on a personal level. And that higher taste that you get, which obviates the material attraction, is essential that we can speak of it and show it with credibility so that people will be attracted. That's what attracts people. What attracts people is Krishna. And how much Krishna's attractiveness you're reflecting in your own life and your own activities and things. And so the two go together. They can't be separated. One, just having a motive for one's own advancement is irresponsible, and it can't be pleasing to Krishna. Just to go off alone and do your own bhajan in some corner of Vrindavan. When you're in good health and young, and when there's a time for that, retiring, that's one thing. And just preaching doesn't work either. I couldn't chant my rounds, I had too many things to do and too many meetings to. It doesn't work like that. You'll become weak. Your effectiveness in attracting others will become crippled, unless you're also manifesting the qualities of a devotee. Both of them have to be there. Go ahead.
So just in relationship to leadership, here it's saying that, those who are actually leaders in the government, or even as a spiritual master in the relationship to his disciple, or a parent to his child, to his or her child. So, does this apply, these things mentioned that, taking one's karma, does that apply to different levels, like a leadership outside of those things? Like, say if you're a leader of a group and you have, or a leader of an organization.
I would guess there's an element of that, but I wouldn't want to say for sure, because I don't remember reading a verse about that. The verse you're referring to, Guru Nasasat, Swajano Nasasat, one should not become any of these things: a guru, a father, a mother, a husband, a relative, a demigod, unless one can deliver one's ward from birth and death. That's what that verse actually says. This verse talks about specifically the Kshatriyas, the executive heads, and their great responsibility, and this whole idea of the percentage of getting the pious activities and also suffering the impious activities. But you would think that there would be an element of that. I mean, Prabhupada talked about that, just about his own level. That you're representing me now, so you have to do the right thing. Otherwise, it redounds on me. That we were very conscious of. That we're representing the society, we're representing Srila Prabhupada, and so we have a great responsibility. But how much that goes on every level of authority, I wouldn't want to guess. But you would think that there's something there. Certainly, you see practically that when one has someone who is instructing, even if you're this idea of instructing guru, it goes on in all levels. Vartma Badarshika Guru. It says there one should not become a guru, so there's different kinds of gurus. And this whole principle, this story probably would tell about Mahatma Gandhi. All kinds of people came to him. So she said, one mother came to her, with her child. She wanted to ask him to give up sweets, or giving up so much sweet, and said, "Well, come back tomorrow." And she came back tomorrow, a couple of days, and says, "You should give up sweets. It's not good for your health." And so she asked, "Well, why did you have to wait?" "Because I haven't given up my sweets myself, so I couldn't speak with real conviction." So that's responsibility on every level. That when we are trying to give Krishna consciousness to those who know less than us, whatever level we may be on, then we can have potency. Krishna will empower our words when we speak with full conviction, because we're actually doing it. Otherwise, everything gets corrupted. hypocrisy comes in there. All right, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.